Zelda video because Zelda 35 is still happening. So you better be damn sure we're still going at it. We still have got no Zelda news, so we are hitting the speculation train hard, this type train, because this is some things we want to see in Breath of the Wild 2. Now, we already did a hype about stuff we want that game to take inspiration from in previous Zelda games. Now, this video is what we want Breath of the Wild 2 to take inspiration from external sources. So there's some ones on here. Well, there's one that's questionable because it's Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but well, who cares?
Yeah.
But we've broken this hype train into 5 main sections. We have story, world, house and maps. It'll make sense when we talk about it. Enemies and weapons. So let's get on with story. Now, one aspect of Breath of the Wild we really thought was kind of lacking was the story and like the lore and
now specifically for this one we're talking more about lore, environmental storytelling, and world building, because we talked about storytelling in the last video with Skyward Sword. And while the environmental storytelling in Breath of the Wild was pretty decent, we would like to see it be a little better. And where I would like them to pull inspiration from environmental storytelling is Bloodborne. Bloodborne and all the Souls-like games are very good at environmental storytelling. In Bloodborne specifically, you just see, there's this guy named Gilbert, and you go talk to him for a while, and he's acting like, yeah, well, I did have the blood sickness, blah, blah, blah. And then you leave, and you think he's good. When you come back, his windows broke open, and there's a werewolf outside his house. It's Gilbert. Like, that kind of stuff. Not that dark for Zelda.
No.
But kind of stuff that,
stuff you can look at and put it together yourself.
Yeah, it doesn't outright tell you, but you know what happened, kind of thing.
Right. And the other aspect of that's world building. Now we're talking about lore building. And we feel like the best inspiration for that would be the Metroid Prime series, because that doesn't tell you anything up front. Samus scans everything, and you learn about stuff through pirate logs.
Literally a section called Chozo Lore.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, probably not to the degree Metroid Prime does it.
I don't want to be walking around with a Sheikah slate scanning every rock in the kingdom.
Right, and however we get the lore, maybe it's scanning, maybe it just happens. Who knows?
You find notes.
Maybe that's it's like Korok seeds. They're like fortune cookies. You crack them open, you get some lore.
Instead of Korok seeds, it's the Picori, and they just throw little paper airplanes at you.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Interesting.
And a good way to work in the Picori.
And not only to learn the behavioral patterns of the animals and stuff, because you get that from the lore in Metroid, but also if you had a developing plot with some of the Yiga members or something, because Metroid Prime 2 specifically, this is my example, you scan some pirate lore and they're texting each other. They're just like, oh my god, there are 2 hunters now, and one is dark and extremely violent. Do not engage.
Now there's a little intersection there now with Bloodborne I just thought of, because the item descriptions in Bloodborne are where you get 90% of the lore. So if they incorporated a weakness system, be like, I was fighting this moblin and then lightning struck him and then he got weaker or whatever. That kind of stuff could be kind of cool to find out enemy weaknesses and strengths and stuff like that.
Or even if it's just lore that doesn't really matter, and there's a description just this is the Hylian sword, sought after by all the Hylian knights of the guard or something like that.
Yeah.
Just something to give us a little more oomph and a little, I guess, more text to read, which doesn't sound good, but it's definitely good. Moving on to world. Now this is different than world building. This is just the world in general, and Breath of the Wild had one of the best worlds ever. It was super empty but also super dense at the same time. It was very interesting, but I feel like it could be just a bit better.
Now, one part that I would like to see is more interactive animal behaviors, and we're pulling that from Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2, you might be hunting a deer or something, and then as you're about to pull back the bow and release, a mountain lion comes up and grabs it from you. I mean, you lose the deer to a mountain lion.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, because the animal behaviors were cool in Breath of the Wild. But they just kind of were there with each other. Maybe occasionally a boar would get chased by a bokoblin, but mostly the animals did not interact, to my knowledge, and just kind of existed in the world. And
there was a fox there, but he wasn't like...
Yeah, he did his little yawn, and he stretched, and then he chittered and ran away.
Yeah, and then you kill it, and then you get a little, meat.
The fox doesn't, accidentally startle a deer or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
The moose or the rhinos, or there's a bunch of cool animals in Breath of the Wild. We want to see them do a little bit more. And something I just thought of that could also pull from Red Dead is the hunting system in Red Dead. You had to use certain weapons to kill certain animals to get the best quality pelts and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not get the pelts or anything, but if you killed a boar with an axe or something, you get more meat or something like that. A little incentive to swap up your weapons for hunting.
And another two last things to pull from Red Dead 2.
We got a lot of Red Dead stuff in this.
I want fishing. I miss fishing. Fishing is oddly one of my favorite things to do in video games. Even if it's simple and dumb. I love fishing. And also, more expansive horse bonding. It's like in Red Dead 2, you bond with your horse. You learn tricks for every level of bond you have with the horse. My favorite one was the drift. You could drift your horse like a motorcycle, and it was amazing. Let me drift a horse in Breath of the Wild 2.
And one thing we're going to pull from the Breath of the Wild DLC is another thing with horse. We liked the horse whistle.
Yeah.
It was very useful. Personally, I barely ever rode my horse because I could never find it.
You get the bridle that teleports the horse to you. Yeah. Now it makes sense in universe that you can just have a horse anywhere. Let me unlock that from the beginning.
Same with the teleport pad. Also, maybe halfway through the game, but I want the teleport pad because it's the best way to get to Terrytown. And it was one of my favorite parts of the DLC was being able to just teleport there.
And while we're talking about that, go ahead and bring in the motorcycle too.
Yeah, why not?
It's established that this Link already has one, so just let him keep it.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
And the final piece of the world puzzle we're building right here would be legendary hunts. And we're pulling this from The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Ooh, buddy, I loved those monster hunts so
We
much.
already kind of touched on this in our past hype train with Minish Cap, adding in the golden variants of the enemies that you had to hunt down in that game. And if there was, there's already gold variants, so something else. But if there were legendary Lionels, Hector the Banisher or something, and it was just this Lionel's been wreaking havoc on the mountainside. Go get him.
We're not wanting necessarily to hunt down a ghost, but it has to be at noon specifically.
Yeah,
or anything
not
like
quite
that. Would be cool, but I'm not trying to go kill it.
Specific factors is cool.
Yeah, being specific is cool. I'm not trying to say Link needs to go kill a Kikimora or anything like that, but just a few legendary hunts here and there would be really cool.
I want to kill the Lord of the Mountain. I know the question's been eating at you. What the hell is house maps? And it's in the name. It's house maps. So we have two things here. They didn't really have their own category, so it's just its own thing. We want a better house, so we're taking this from Animal Crossing New Horizons, because what else would we take
Some
it
more
from?
meaningful upgrades. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I loved the house. It was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, it was fun having a house.
Yeah,
but
I liked it in Wind Waker too. It's just there's nothing to do in these houses.
Yeah, it was basically a collectible item. It wasn't something to experience.
A chest to store my stuff in.
Yes,
would be
more.
awesome.
That would be the main thing. Is store your weapons in more than just your 6 decoration spots.
There was plenty of room in that house for more displays.
Yeah,
there was.
This, not necessarily from Animal Crossing, but in The Witcher, then the DLC, they had a vineyard you could have, and you could plant certain herbs and grow it at your house.
Oh, yeah.
Let me grow herbs. If I want a bunch of Amaranths, let me plant some Amaranths.
Yeah, that
at my house.
Dragon Age Inquisition too.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's a little bitty farm. You don't have to tend to it.
No,
that would be stupid.
Make it like
But
the berries in Pokemon, like where they're really easy to farm. It's an easy way to get more.
Yeah, you just wait a certain amount of in-game days.
Bring back the butler door from Wind Waker, and he tends to your garden for you. Lets you know when your crops are ready.
And then the second part of this category is maps, and this is the brilliant way they could bring Tingle into Breath of the Wild because he's all about maps. They cost a pretty penny, but we want like collectible maps, and we're pulling this from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, dude, those Koroks. You could make it super expensive too, because money was not hard to come by in Breath of the Wild, despite the fact that it doesn't come out of grass very often. I was rich as hell. Like, make it cost like 5,000 per region and 6 diamonds. I don't care how you have to do it. You can make it expensive as hell. I wanted to get all the Koroks, but man, just looking at a guide for that overwhelmed me. I didn't want to do it. I got enough to where I had all the equipment slots open, but that was it. I was done.
Like, I guarantee more people would have gotten all the Koroks if they had a map that was... Yeah, maybe even one like what's happened in previous Zelda games where it marks off as you go.
Right, and I know the developers really didn't want people collecting all the Koroks. That's why they made them a bunch of shit.
Oh, yeah.
But like,
if you put 900 of something in a game, people are going to go look for it.
If we want to do it, just let us do it.
They could even make it post-game. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that, like toward the end of the game even... Or post-game, after you beat it, you get the ability to buy these maps. Yeah. And Tingle Kalimpas all over you and unlocks everything for you. But, man, Koroks they were fun, but they became monotonous if you tried to grind for them.
And that's why we're pulling this from Horizon Zero Dawn, because the collectibles in Horizon 1 weren't that vast, so it wasn't that bad. But also, you could buy, like, a map to find some Banuk figures or the little... coffee cups you had to go find and stuff, and it would just mark them there, and then you would go and it wouldn't pinpoint them, so you still had to search for them, and it wasn't like instant you go here you get it. You still have to search around. Some are in buildings, some are under stuff in caves, whatever. So it just gives you the general sense of where the item is, and that's what we would want in Breath of the Wild 2. Also, more than just Korok seeds would be ideal, but we'll see if that happens. Next up is a big one. This is all about enemies. And we love all the enemies from Breath of the Wild. I mean, Wizzrobes are probably bottom of the barrel. But...
yeah, Wizzrobes can go straight to hell. I don't like any of them. They're annoying. They're in the air. I don't want to mess with you, you dumbass wizard.
We love the enemies, we like the AI for what it is, but we also wish it was a little bit more expansive. So for this we want smarter enemy AI, pulling it from The Last of Us Part 2. Because in that game, the enemy is way smarter than other enemies, to the point where like you don't just hide in the grass and you're hidden, you're done, that's it. No, if they're above you, they can see you in the grass, so they're just like, hey, she's there, go get her. And that's what we want. Like, a Bokoblin is obviously a moron, but they can still see, and also, maybe red Bokoblins are like the dumbest of the dumb, but a blue Bokoblin is a little smarter. Black Bokoblin is smarter than that. White Bokoblin's smarter than that, and then gold Bokoblin's a genius.
Yeah, there we go.
And give them like ways to communicate with each other.
Yeah, they just grunt, and when you kill one, they're like, "Oh no, it was Jimmy! He got Jimmy!"
Maybe not that far, but
maybe not. Yeah,
you blow up their dog, and they're just like, "Bear, no!"
But it would be cool, like if they don't just immediately forget that you're there.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the red ones do, but, like, maybe as you move up the chain, like, if you've drawn their attention, they're going to stay suspicious for a good while before
I want
you
it to be very hard at the end game where golden Bokoblins are constantly blowing that Bokoblin horn because they see your ass.
Yeah.
And then you have to either go on the run or go on the offensive. That's what I want. And then Lizalfos would be a whole other breed of that. So would Moblins and...
Lizalfos, you could make them, like, stalk you.
Oh, make them the stealthies.
Yeah.
Like, punch you down.
Man, I don't remember what they're called, but yes, if they were like that, but like the new one, off the top of my head, improv, adding to the list. If Lizalvos were like the little raptor scary f***ers in Dead Space 2 that sneak up on you, clever girl your ass, and just pinch you like in the dead box or whatever it's called, like that would be incredible. Lizalvos gets super smart. And
this is scary now that I'm thinking about it.
And this one's quick. I'll just throw that in while we're talking about Breath of the Wild enemies. Age of Calamity had elemental varieties of a lot of enemies. That was really cool. You had like Thunder Lynels and Ice Lynels and Ice Hinox and Malice Hinox. All the big enemies had elemental variants of Fire, Ice, Thunder, and Malice, and maybe one more.
Yeah,
not
like
remembering.
We got a taste of that with the Lynel by Mifa's place.
Yeah, he shot all
when
specifically lightning.
He only
arrows.
had the lightning.
Or that
arrows,
one silver one in the Coliseum that had the elemental weapons.
Yeah,
like that kind of stuff. But that would be a really cool thing to break from Age of Calamity is elemental variants in the big boy enemies.
Also, it would give developers bragging rights, because if you keep all the color variants and the elemental variants, they could just be like, we have over 100 enemies in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And if they're elemental variants, we wouldn't mind too much of like the bland color variant changes. That I know a lot of JRPGs have that. Breath of the Wild had that, but no one really cared too much about that. But if the elemental variants were in there, it would add a lot more like spice.
Yeah, that's not just a palette swap with more health.
Right.
He's got lightning.
So now that we've excited ourselves into a point of good enemy AI that probably will not happen with the Lizalfos killing you and everything, we would like to sneak around, but done pretty well. Breath of the Wild, to its credit, had the best Zelda stealth that's ever happened. But
it's a pretty low bar.
Yeah. Every Zelda game seems to have some type of stealthy section, whether you're sneaking around like the Hyrule Castle with the guards, or in Skyward Sword when you get hit by that tornado, you lose your weapons and you sneak through Bokoblin Camp.
Yeah, not all of them, but there's a lot. Wind Waker, you get shot out that barrel and your sword goes away.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of times where you're stealthily following somebody.
No, that's not what
we don't need that.
No.
We don't want any of that. We want like other stuff that we talked about before that.
Metal Gear Solid is where we're pulling this from. Let's get back on track.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid, the original stealth action game, had some great stealth and had a lot of stealth options that you may not even use, like that weird little belly crawl you could do in Metal Gear Solid 4 with Snake. Why have
Very
that?
slow.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool, but
when you're doing the big boss challenge, it comes in handy.
I'm not talking about like.
Oh yeah, but that's what we're talking about for Metal Gear is options.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
Gear,
like
you can go in guns a blazing.
Oh yeah, but I'm not talking about octo camo or anything. Just more than just a little slink around and a stab.
There's a lot of opportunity for just several different gameplay options available.
Have a stalker type Bokoblin that's like purple. And he just can see at night like a cat.
And our fifth and final topic of external hype that we want in Breath of the Wild 2 is weapons. This is a big problem area for some, not for others. In Breath of the Wild 1 was the weapons. They break all the time. You gotta swap weapons. I both love and hate it myself.
Yeah,
but
I like that it forced me to adapt. But I didn't like that sometimes I'd only have an axe or something.
Right, like sometimes, like especially at the beginning, you're just like, this woodcutter's axe ain't gonna cut it. So let me go get something else.
A lot of times, if everything was broken and all I had was a sledgehammer, I would just leave and go gather stuff because I didn't want to break my hammer.
Oh, this is quick and impromptu. This was not what we wrote down, but we could pull in from Fire Emblem, where like if you're against a guy with an axe, he's weak to spears. Or something like that. Fire Emblem has that system where certain types of enemies are weak to certain types of weapons.
Weakness, strength.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be interesting.
That would be a good way to keep people on their toes if they ditch the weapon breaking system, which I don't think they will. It's pretty. That would basically break the game if it's built like the first one.
Yeah.
But that would be a cool way around it if they chose to.
Back on topic, what we really want and what we thought was lacking is in Breath of the Wild 1. There is one legendary weapon, and it's a sword. You may know what it is. It's the Master Sword. But we want more legendary items, because once you got the Master Sword, especially from the first DLC, once you powered it up so it was like 60 damage all the time, really used anything else.
Why would you use anything else?
Like, only when it's out of juice and it's charging or whatever will you use something else. Most of the time, you have the shield, you have the sword. It's the most versatile, and the versatility to strength ratio makes it the best in the game, which it should. It's the Master Sword. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also not, like, it's a step down in variety, because then the only thing you're left with is Lionel weapons, and that's either the mace, the spear, or the sword. And we want a little more than that, because the champion weapons all seem to be lacking, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially in the end game. Like, right when you get them, they're good, but...
I was afraid to use them. I didn't want to break them.
I couldn't bring myself to use them. Once I found out I could have a house, I hung those up.
Yeah, I like that.
Never touched them.
I hung them in my house. I enjoyed that. That was cool that I can display them. And you can reforge them. And that's one we were going to touch on is if you give us legendaries, give us the ability to fix them. And you did before, but it was kind of a bitch to do.
We're drawing inspiration from this from Monster Hunter, by the way, where you can gather materials and upgrade your weapons.
Yes.
And that would be one thing, like, I loved the Lizalfos boomerangs. But by the end of the game, they sucked.
Yeah.
Like, I always carried one, but if you could upgrade it as you went, so it gradually got stronger and stronger, you could carry that thing through forever.
Right.
And if it eventually broke, you just go make a new one.
And even if they did it in a way where, like, you can't upgrade the general rabble of weaponry, but if you find, like, a legendary weapon on the Great Plateau, for example, at the very beginning,
the Bigoron sword would be the legendary Great Sword.
You can upgrade it to be end game worthy. So that way you don't have it at the beginning and it's like kind of iffy or super overpowered. It would be an interesting way, I think, to balance it with the legendaries.
Like, maybe add in extra stuff, like as you upgrade Urbosa's scimitar, you start doing like weird lightning power stuff, or like it gets worked into your combos or something like that.
And that leads us to the crux of this category, is the legendary weapons. And we think no other game has done this better than the original Fable.
Oh, yeah.
Those legendary weapons are like the best of the bunch. I remember it took me forever to get Scorm's bow. And once you do, my God, is it worth it.
The one that was not worth it was that sword in the stone. That thing sucked by the time you're strong enough to pull it out.
Some were good, some were iffy. They carried it on into Fable 2 also.
No, Fable 2 is a bad example, because once you get the Daichi, nothing else is worth a shit.
Yes, but the Daichi is where it's at.
I know, but that's...
And then you get I think there was like a pistol that was basically a shotgun too.
Yeah, it was
so that was interesting. The main thing is the legendaries all have like unique characteristics to them, whether that be like skills embedded in the actual weapon in the game or just super high attack and versatility. We want to see legendaries in every weapon class, and while we're at it, give us some more weapon classes, unrelated.
Yeah,
but I want nunchucks.
Yeah, let's get some nunchucks.
That would be cool.
Get a bow staff. Oh, that would just be a spear with no point.
Or get a weaponized shield for shield surfing.
Yeah,
like, that would be something.
That existed.
Yeah.
Like, you had spiked shields and things like that. Another game that really did legendaries well is Borderlands.
We're not talking about killing the same Hinox 10 million times to get a good sword.
But they do a good job of making interesting and unique legendaries.
Yes.
The main thing we're drawing from is the original Borderlands, because they had special guns in those games that you could go and assemble them into a unique gun that you wouldn't ordinarily find.
A sniper rifle that blows like kisses at you or whatever, or on its tooth thing, but you just build a cool, unique weapon that you find, and you would find the shaft, you would find the triggers, you would find the stock, you would find all the parts.
Oh, yeah.
And then you would get the gun. It was cool.
And honestly, before you Borderlands fans come at us and be like, these sucked, we are kind of with you. They kind of sucked in Borderlands.
But the concept was cool.
Yes, if the weapons were more worth it in Borderlands, like if they were actual legendary weapons that you assembled, and then it would be worth it. Because you assembled this like god tier weapon instead of just this kind of, I think we're like blue, maybe purple rarity, something. They were unique and good at the time, but you outgrew them in like 5 levels, and that wouldn't necessarily happen with Breath of the Wild. But if you had like 1 or 2 that you had to go all over Hyrule assembling and stuff, that would be an interesting game-long quest that you could do. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our hype train. And we had a lot of fun and unique ideas, we think, making this list. It was really fun to come up with. We can't wait for Breath of the Wild 2. And if you guys have any ideas that we didn't mention here, because odds are you do, let us know in the comments. There's infinite possibilities that all of them probably won't happen, but it's fun to talk about. So let us hear them. And we are really excited to see some things, but as you can tell, we mainly just want a bunch of tingle in Breath of the Wild 2. So we'll see y'all next time.
Cool Empire.